Good afternoon, how are you doing? If you're new here, welcome. My name's Flo. If you're not new here, welcome back. Thank you for sticking around. Today, we are going to be wrapping up my November reads. I have had a fun reading month. We read 10 books this month, so that's pretty decent, I'd say. It's not too shabby. Reading's meant to be fun. I never want to put pressure on. Some months you're going to read more, some months you're going to read less. 10 books for some people will be nothing at all. To some people it will be lots. It doesn't matter. There's no pressure here. We're not a competition. But this month I did read 10 books. It's been a bit of a wild month. Lots has happened, but I also went on holiday, so I got some holiday reading done. So I don't really know what my point was there, but just that I have read books and I shall tell you about said read books. Yeah, whatever. Before we start, do please subscribe. Thanks. So we're going to jump right on into it. I think the first book I read this month, I don't know if this is true. I'm not doing these in order, but I think this might have been the first one because I started this for my 24-hour readathon, which you haven't seen. Go watch it. But anyway, I read The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. This is a series, for anyone who doesn't know, it's a series of sort of standalone books set in a retirement home following 4 residents of the retirement home, and they have a thing called the Thursday Murder Club where they solve unsolved murder cases, and then in this book, a real murder happens in the actual home and they decide to solve it. The best way I can describe this book is just quintessentially British. Richard Osman is obviously a massive TV personality in Britain. I don't know how big he is in the US, where a lot of my viewers are from, but if you don't know who he is, you should absolutely check him out. You probably do, I presume. I don't know, check him out. He's very funny, very, very intelligent, and he wrote a book. He wrote it quite a while ago, but I've just read said book. I need to stop saying said book. And I had a really good time with this. It's just light-hearted, fun, murder mystery, quite cozy vibes. And then there's a few really, really unexpectedly sad bits in this. Obviously, it's set in a retirement home, so all the characters are older. Most of them are in their 80s. And it does talk a bit about growing older and dying and losing people. And there were a few moments in this that are really hard-hitting and really sad. But for the most part, good vibes, cozy, quite funny, quite witty. I don't currently own any more of the series. I think my mum might, so I might nick them from her. I think they're all standalones. This one at least was anyway, so if you want to just read this one or pick one from the series, I think you should be able to do that. Then I have got Beach Read by Emily Henry. This is my second Emily Henry book. I read Book Lovers a while ago in my reading romance books for a week, and I very much enjoyed Book Lovers. Beach Read follows 2 authors, January and Gus, and they are basically both in writing slumps. They're both writing books and they're both in writing slumps, and so they decide to swap genres. So January writes romance and Gus writes literary fiction. There's also quite a lot of interesting content in here about the perception of romance writers and romance readers, and how it's perceived as a really easy genre to write and given a lot less prestige and all that stuff. So I just thought that was also really interesting, especially to hear from a romance writer. But for the most part, this is very fun, light-hearted beach read, but again, similar to Thursday Murder Club, does have those deeper themes, and also similar to Book Lovers, has those conversations about grief kind of underlying it, which is what I found with Book Lovers, that it was 80% quite fun and light-hearted, and then just had those sadder moments to them, which I guess gives the characters and the relationships and stuff that depth. But I did have a very fun time with Beach Read, and I read it on a beach, which I just think enhanced the experience. Then I had, I think also in my 24-hour readathon, I read Less by Andrew Sean Greer. This is, I'm going to say literary fiction. I feel like I just call everything literary fiction if I just don't know what genre it is. I would say literary fiction. It's about an author called Arthur Less, and he is about to turn 50, and that is basically freaking him out. And I really feel that, not because I'm about to turn 50, but that I have a thing about aging. It stresses me out. So I found this very relatable. But effectively, this is about a man travelling. He's also an author, so another book about a writer, which I just think for me is a fun added bonus. I don't know how other people feel about it, but I really like reading about writers. And I'm also writing a book, so it's nice to hear about other struggling writers, even if they are fictional. But this follows Arthur Less, and he basically gets a wedding invite to his ex-boyfriend's new wedding, and that kind of sends him down a spiral. So he's like, right, well, I'm not going to that. Instead, I'm gonna like just fill my life like that month with really loads going on. And he basically goes on a world tour, and this sort of takes you all over a bunch of different countries, him like going on all these different adventures, and it's quite light-hearted and witty. This has quite a lot of those deeper conversations as well about like aging and relationships and growing up, and it's quite, I almost want to say an existential book, but the existentialism, I don't think that's a word, but go with me. I feel like we all know what I'm trying to say. Maybe we don't. The existentialism is hidden almost behind quite a fun plot. So it's all like packed in there, but it's not like in your face, like this is a deep book. It's like, it is deep, but on the surface it's quite fun, and we're going to different countries and we're traveling, and it's comedic. That wasn't a particularly good explanation, but it's the best one I've got. I'm very tired, please forgive me. I was about to say I'm jet lagged. I just got back off holiday like 2 days ago, but the time difference was literally an hour. I'm not sure I can claim jet lag. Then I read The Push. I've already made so many puns out of the name of this book, so I will not do it anymore. But if you want to see those puns, I think I read this for The Wheel Chooses How Many Hours I Read, so up there again. I'm really self-promoting my other videos today, I do apologise. I'm going to stop now. But The Push by Ashley Audrain is about a mother and a daughter, and it basically follows from the mother's perspective as her life, she gives birth to her daughter Violet, and then she basically decides that her child is awful and evil, and it's very, very interesting. It reminds me actually of another book I'm about to talk about, in the sense of like, you don't know if the reality is completely the reality. Like, reality and fiction sort of feel a bit twisted in this book, and you don't know how reliable the narrator is. It's gruesome at parts, it's really, really graphic. There are lots of descriptions of birth that are very bloody and gory. It's got almost, I don't want to say horror elements, it's not a horror at all, but it does not shy away from anything. But I flew through this, I could not put it down. When I wasn't reading it, I just wanted to pick it back up. I had the best time with this book. It's psychological, it's morally grey characters, they do things that are really messed up, but you just want to know what's going to happen next. And then along a similar sort of vein, I'll do this one next because I do think they're very, very different, but they have similar themes, is Boy Parts by Eliza Clark. And the reason I say these are similar is, plot-wise, they're not similar at all, but they both have this graphic goriness, horrible characters, morally grey people. I mean, the character in this is probably worse. Yeah, definitely worse. This is about a woman called Irina. She is a photographer. She photographs men who are not considered particularly conventionally attractive, and she makes them do very degrading things. She really enjoys the power of it, and she's a very, very horrible main character. She's manipulative, she is abusive, she is rude. You won't like her, but you're not meant to like her. But the author has done such a fabulous job of making her unlikable but not unreadable. Like, at no point through this was I like, oh, I just hate this woman. I didn't like her, but I was so engrossed in who she was and what she was doing. And I think that is a fine art. And effectively, this to me is the story of a woman just unravelling. And she is horrible, but she also has had a lot of horrible things happen to her. But it's similar to The Push, and this is another similarity, is we don't totally know what's real and what's not. Particularly more so in this one, as you get through, you're realising certain things that you thought have happened maybe haven't actually happened, and whether that's because of the character's mental state or because she's very manipulative and lies a lot, we don't totally know. It's probably a mix by the feels of it, but this talks a lot about mental health, drug abuse, sexual abuse. There's a lot of very, very heavy themes in here, but to me was completely engaging, and again, absolutely flew through this. I think I read this in 2 days and I did not want it to end. And this is a debut, which is an insane debut. Like, the writing in this to me is just fabulous, and I cannot wait to see what Eliza Clark writes next. I believe she has another book. Oh, so she has a book out, at least according to the back of this, called Penance. I don't know if she has more, but needless to say, whatever else I see Eliza Clark's name on, I will be buying, because I just adored this. And this and The Push, I would say, are probably in my top books of the year. They are fabulous stories, and they're written by fabulous women. Well, I don't know the women. I'm assuming they're fabulous. Their writing is fabulous. Okay, then to completely mix it up, I read Logan's Run by William F. Nolan and George Clayton Johnson. It looks like this was originally written in 1967, so a little bit of an older book. Only a little bit, but this, I think it's considered a classic, maybe? I don't know, I'm considering it a classic. But this is a dystopia meets sci-fi, probably more sci-fi. This is about a man called Logan, and it is set in a world where anyone over 21 needs to be killed. I think that was to do with overpopulation, but basically once you turn 21, you have to hand yourself in. And Logan is a runner, which basically means if anyone... No, Logan's not a runner. Well, Logan runs. Well, Logan is a bounty hunter, and he effectively goes after people who decide to run instead of handing themselves in. So anyone who says, actually, don't feel like getting killed today, I'm a leg it, he goes, no, you're not. I should really blurb books, that should be on the front. He is a bounty hunter until he turns 21, which is where this book starts, and then Logan's like, do you know what? I don't really feel like getting killed. And he hears about a place called Paradise, which supposedly will protect him if he can reach this place called Paradise. Supposedly that's a safe haven and he'll be safe. So Logan runs. And effectively this book just follows him running. This has been an awful book description. Effectively, this book is Logan and a girl he meets on the way going on a run. And it is the quickest paced book I have ever read in my entire life. And it follows them over all these different realms, all these different worlds. They meet loads of different people. It's very sci-fi, it's very weird and wacky, it's very quick paced. I think if sci-fi isn't your genre, which it's not necessarily mine, as in I haven't read a lot, but I think this is a very good one to sort of dip your toe into, because it's very short, it's only 160 pages. And it moves so quickly. Like, you can't be bored because they'll cover 3 different worlds in 1 page. Then I read, finally, The Lamplighters. I've owned this book for so long. Yes, I bought it because it has sprayed edges. It's the rules. This is one of the most beautiful books I've owned, and I've had this probably for about 8 months. I found it thrifting. I actually now see it all the time when I'm in thrift stores, but don't see it with sprayed edges. So this is why you buy a book with sprayed edges. This is based on a true story that happened in Cornwall in 1972. Well, the book is set in Cornwall 1972. The story is true. I don't know how many of the... Okay, I've just Googled it. It didn't actually happen in 1972. It happened in December 1900. And it happened off the northwest coast of Scotland. So I think she's changed details. But I believe that this book is based off the Flannan Isle mystery. And what happened in real life and what happened in the book is that 3 men who were on a lighthouse disappeared. And they disappeared, no bodies were ever found, no boats had gone in or come out. They were supposed to send a relief team. I believe the relief team didn't make it. This happened in real life, and in real life they've never found out what happened. And still to this day they don't know. And so this book is effectively a reimagining of that. It basically is this is what maybe could have happened. It's a suggestion. And this follows 2 timelines. It follows the men on the lighthouse, like the weeks before they go missing, and it follows the women left behind, the 3 like wives and girlfriends and their families. A number of years after the men had gone missing, it follows the women, and it follows a reporter basically trying to talk to the women, trying to find out what happened, and then you flash back to the lighthouse to kind of find out what happened. And it ended up being sort of open-ended. It doesn't necessarily say this is exactly what happens. It kind of says this is maybe a possibility. But it is interesting. I think if you're into true crime or like conspiracy theories, it has a lot of different like speculations and answers, and like maybe this happened, maybe this happened. I didn't actually realise until the end. I recognised the story the whole way through. I was like, I swear I've heard of this, but I just thought I was, I don't know, being silly. And then I googled the book at the end, and then I went, oh, okay, this is an actual thing. And I think knowing that, I wish I'd known that while reading it, so that's why I'm telling you. But I think if you read this, maybe do it after, I don't know, but maybe do some research, because I mean, it's a very sad but very interesting case anyway, like the real case. And because they've never found it out, it's a very interesting subject to write about, and just a very unique idea, I think, to take a real life mystery and basically do a reimagining of what could have happened. And it's quite creepy. I was very creeped out at bits of this. If you want to be creeped out by something that really happened in real life, a good one. I listened to it by audiobook, so I don't have a copy, but I will put it here, is They Both Die at the End by, oh my god, that made me jump. See, this book's still creeping me out. They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. This is a dystopia, maybe, young adult literary fiction. I don't know that those genres are correct, but I'll tell you what it's about, because I do know that. This is set in a world where there's a thing called Deathcast, which basically is a company that will call you at the start of the day to tell you that you are going to die that day. And this follows two young boys called Rufus and Mateo. They are, I think, 17 and 18, so they're quite young, and they basically both get the phone call at the start of the day. Mateo is very introverted, very in himself. His dad is in a coma, he's living alone. He doesn't want to leave the house, he's very subdued. And then Rufus has a big group of friends, but he's sort of gone down the wrong path. When he gets the call, he's actually beating up a man. So they're very, very different personalities. And basically the story follows them coming together, their friendship, their relationship, and it follows them throughout their last day. And without giving any spoilers, it is very wholesome, very sad in parts, and it talks a lot about love and friendship and relationships and death. I felt so connected to the story and to Mateo and Rufus just from the first chapter. Like, it just felt like a warm, sad hug, I think is how I described it before. Follow these characters and you just sort of fall in love with them gradually, and then you're kind of building to this point of like, presumably they're going to die at the end, and you have to kind of ride that wave with them and watching them say goodbye to their friends and to their family and trying to experience some final things. And it's sort of about appreciating life and appreciating moments and the people you've got around you. And it's a very wholesome, reflective book. And I very, very much enjoyed it, and I just felt connected to it the whole time. And then last but not least, I read A Flicker in the Dark by Stacey Willingham. A Flicker in the Dark follows Chloe. She is a psychologist who has an addiction to anxiety meds, and in the past her father went to jail for being a serial killer, and he basically killed a bunch of young women. And now, many years later, this was when she was a child, many years later she's now an adult, and the killings have started happening again. Basically follows her trying to figure out what's happening. She's starting to realise that some of the killings are somehow connected to her and her family, and she's realising that the killings have the exact same MO that they had before with her father when her father was doing the murders. And she's like, well, that is highly suspicious. And she teams up with a journalist, and they are basically trying to figure out what is happening. And this is sort of a fun twist on a thriller, because it's got all of those classic thriller elements of like, you're trying to figure out who did it and all of that fun stuff, but then it's also kind of got deeper themes talking about like growing up in like a difficult household and the effects that has on you as an adult. And it's also talking about her mental health and her addiction to these anxiety meds, and how that sort of makes her, again, unreliable, not only to us but to the other characters. So she's trying to tell the police things and they're not necessarily believing her. and that just makes all of it a bit more confused, confuzzled, and it's a fun element to add to a thriller. That's every book I've read this month. I'm currently still reading One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I think I'm about halfway through, but I think we'll save that for another video or another wrap up depending, but I did start that on holiday, so I just thought I'd include it briefly to say that I am reading it. But that is every book I read this month. We had some very good ones and we found a few favourite books of the entire year. And now we're coming into December and should I spoil next week's video? Yeah, I'll spoil next week's video. We're going to be doing the blind TBR, so like wrapping everything up in brown paper and then picking books at random. So I have no idea what I'm reading in this next month, which is terrifying, but also fun. So if you want to see that video, stick around for next week. That will be out next week. And then the rest of the month, who knows what I'll be reading, but we'll have some fun. And if anyone has any suggestions of what books they want to see as the possibilities, let me know. I mean, these are some of the books, but anyway, point being, I don't know what content's coming up, but it will be fun. Hopefully, I don't know. But thank you very much for being here. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you to everybody who already has. Leave a comment, all that fun stuff. I really appreciate your time and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Goodbye.